Hello and welcome to Outlook. I'm Matthew Bannister. On today's programme, the Indian activist Kailash Satyarthi. He's made it his life's work to campaign against child exploitation in his country. He's risked his life to do it, but so far he estimates that he's been able to rescue some 80,000 children. Now 61 years old, he shows no sign of slowing down. He came into the Outlook studio to tell me more about his life.
My father was a policeman. He was a police constable. And my mother was a housewife. She was illiterate woman, but she was very determined that all her children go to school and get the best education.
How many children did she have?
Altogether 5. I was the youngest. My eldest brother was also in education field, and then my second brother was also a professor, and the third one, my sister, the only sister, happened to be the head teacher in a high school for whole of her life. So it was good.
So all of you got a very good education.
All of us got good education.
What was your schooling like?
I studied in a government school, which was not very bad, but it was a normal school, as happened to be in a small town. I was born and grew up in a place called Vidisha. This is near Bhopal, which was infamous for this big
chemical disaster.
Chemical disaster many years ago. So we are situated only about 50 kilometers away from there. So I went to a primary school, and then I was good in mathematics and science subjects. So my parents thought that I should become an engineer, and luckily we had an engineering institute in my hometown itself. So I went there and passed as electrical engineer. I also worked there for about a year and taught the graduate classes.
So you saw a future ahead of you as a teacher or as an electrical engineer?
I saw my future as someone who was who wanted to do something else, because the very first day of my schooling was the beginning of a new kind of spark, or a new lens to see the world in a different way. I came across a boy of my age. He was also about 5 and a half, as I was, sitting outside the door of my school along with his father, and he was a cobbler boy. So when I was entering with new shoes and new books, new dreams, everything new, as the first day school boy, I saw him looking at me, whether we would give him some job to do, but we were having new shoes, so there was nothing like shoe polishing or cleaning. And I asked my teacher that why he is sitting outside. The teacher replied, "It's common, the poor children have to work." Then I spoke to my headmaster the same day, and he tried to convince me that, look, this is your first day, be familiar with the school rules and make new friends instead of looking outside. But I said that, sir, he should be in school with us. Then one day I asked the boy's father that, sir, why don't you send your son to school? And he looked at me as it was a very, very heavy question. He said, I have never thought about it, because I started working since my childhood, and so is my son. Then the second part of his answer was a question and a challenge for me in the rest of my life. He said that we are born to work. And I asked myself that why some people are born to work, and why some people like me are born with dreams and aspirations and make them true. So that is unfair. So that was always in my mind.
And when did the change come? When did you decide that you had got enough qualifications, enough experience, and it was time to do something about it?
I kept on doing something. I started collecting some money to pay the fees of needy children, because they were forced to leave the school. I started collecting some books for poor children so that they should not drop out from the schools. That I kept on doing in all my student life. But when I passed out as an engineer, I made up my mind that, of course, because of the family pressure and their demands and desire, I can work for a year or two, but eventually I will leave and start something. But that was the big challenge, because child slavery, child trafficking, child labor, servitude, these phrases were unheard. It was a non-issue in my country. So it was a big challenge that time.
And had you done research? Had you found out how big the problem was by this stage?
No research, in fact. I was not a researcher or an academic person, but I want to challenge the wrong which was happening around me. And I could not wait for a proper research to do, because by the time I do my research, by the time I figure out how to do and strategy and all these kind of things, the childhood of that child or those children will be gone. So I had to act immediately.
Why do you think it made such an impression on you? Because other people will have seen that child sitting outside the school and it won't have made an impression on them at all. They'll just have taken it for granted. Why do you think it struck you so powerfully and made you want to do something about it?
I don't know exactly, but I saw some of the inequalities and some injustices around us. In the name of caste system, for instance, I saw that there were some people untouchables. The women who come to clean our streets, or they used to clean the open toilets and take away the dirt, they were not treated well. And I looked around my neighborhood and in my family that something is wrong somewhere at that age also. So when I saw that boy, it was obvious for me that, because it was a sharp contrast.
So what steps did you take when you gave up electrical engineering and set out to tackle the problem of child labour?
Because I have no path to go, because there was no organization, there was no individual, there was nothing to learn from anywhere in my country or anywhere in the world. People were doing some charity work, which was good, but I was challenging an evil. I was challenging a crime. I refused to accept that the children are allowed to work like that. So I had no answer. So I have to find answers in my work. I started a journal in Hindi called Sangharsh Jari Rahega, means struggle shall continue. And that was also a new experiment which was devoted for the cause of issues of these children, women, men who were deprived of their very fundamental human rights and dignity. So I started writing about them. So I was the editor, publisher, writer, journalist, photographer, everything, one person magazine. It was a fortnightly, and trying to raise awareness about those issues, and let us see that how the people respond to it. The response was quite good. One day a man entered into our office. He was a very frail, old-looking guy. He fainted as soon as he entered. He was desperate, father of a girl who was born and grew up in a brick kiln, where this guy and his family and many more families were held in bondage. They were all trafficked from a different place and kept in bonded labor for many years. So that 14-15-year-old girl was about to be sold to a brothel by the brick kiln owner. So somehow the father ran away, and he ran here and there in search of some help, and somehow he got the copy of the magazine I was publishing from a subscriber. And that gentleman said that, look, this editor will write about you and raise the issue so that perhaps the government can help. But when I was writing this story, I don't know when and how, I decided that it is not enough. I write it now, it would be published in 2 weeks' time. Instead, I should act now, because the girl would be sold by that time. The girl's name was Sabah. It was a Muslim family. But this man warned me that these people are very dangerous people. They can kill you and me, so we cannot go like that. But I was adamant. I decided to go along with some of my friends.
To challenge the employer? To
challenge the employer. I went there. I believed in non-violence. So I was not keeping even a can or a stick or anything in a hand. Forget about any kind of other weapon. However, this man, Wasal Khan, his name was Wasal Khan. Wasal Khan told me that don't go without a weapon. I said, I don't believe in weapon. If I take a gun, this man will bring a cannon or something like that. So better to go without that. So we went there, and we were really badly treated, manhandled, beaten up. Our cameras were broken by the employer and his people, and the police was also in their side. So we could not free those people that day, and the girl as well.
So the authorities were against you too. They saw...
Not against me, but again they were in favor of that crime, because they were hand in gloves. They might be making money out of it. But I did not give up. I somehow found that judiciary, the court, is one way. So there is an old law which was lying in papers. There was no law against child labor, but there was a law, what we call the habeas corpus petition. So we had filed an habeas corpus and somehow freed that group.
And habeas corpus is about the freedom of the individual,
the freedom of
isn't it?
individuals,
Yes,
because
yes.
so we could challenge slavery or any kind of illegal confinement against the will of those people. And we did it, and finally we were able to free 36 children, women and men on the very first rescue operation or this kind of effort.
That wasn't the last time you've been beaten up, was it? There have been many other occasions.
That was the first time, and the last time was about some years ago.
Right, but there were many, many other occasions when you got yourself into trouble going up against the vested interests who depend on child labour for their business success.
They are like mafia. They are very well organized criminals. So I lost 2 of my colleagues. One was shot dead and one was beaten to death. I have attacked many, many times. I could not recall. I have got my broken leg, left leg. I have my backbone broken. I have my shoulder broken. My head is broken. So I have scars and wounds in all my body.
And you've talked about believing in non-violence. What is your approach when you go to a factory or to a premises where you think that there is bad treatment going on of young people? How do you tackle these people if you don't use violence?
Now, luckily, we have some laws in our favor. That time, laws were not there. So when the laws are enacted, we approach the judiciary, we approach the police. Sometimes the police gives the tip-off even before we reach, so we don't find children over there, or the girls who were trafficked, so we could not find them. But we have to take the risk. Eventually, we have to take the authorities with us for such rescue operations. But in many other cases, we go without police when we learn that police will not help at all, and police or the authorities will inform in advance. So we do some rescue operations in odd times, like middle in the night or very early morning, and that is equally risky. I mean, we do a lot of recce work, we do a lot of homework before going there, but it's always dangerous.
Can I ask what it meant to you to win the Nobel Prize?
It is for the first time that the Nobel Peace Prize has been given to someone who is working for these children. So it is basically the prize for those people. It is basically the recognition of their issues and their plights and their aspirations and dreams for the future.
Kailash Satyarthi, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize.